The job of Adirondack Forest Ranger is a dauntingly strenuous and potentially dangerous one. Keeping all of these state workers safe deep in the wilderness requires coordination and logistics. The death of an assistant forest ranger last year signaled to the state that it was falling short. So the DEC is reworking some of its system for managing rangers. But some people say the agency is avoiding some of the biggest problems. That's today's story of the day.
Support for Story of the Day comes from Morja Wealth Management, serving the North Country for 3 generations. MorjaWM.com. Advisory services offered through Hightower Advisors, LLC. Securities are offered through Hightower Securities, LLC, member FINRA, SIPC. And Kinney Drugs, now accepting S3 Nations benefits and OTC Network Wellness benefit cards for eligible over-the-counter health items. Details at KinneyDrugs.com.
Hey, I'm David Sommerstein. It's Tuesday, May 19th. First up, today is school budget voting day. Across the North Country, voters are deciding on their local school district spending plans, capital improvements, and school board members. Check on your school district's website or Facebook page, or just call for the hours the polls are open and where to vote. Democrats say they're bullish on flipping the North Country's congressional seat because Republicans have a bitter primary. The New York Public News Network's Jimmy Vielkind reports.
Party officials at the Democratic Rural Conference meeting in Saratoga are buzzing about Blake Gendebien, a dairy farmer from St. Lawrence County who's running in the 21st District to replace Elise Stefanik, a Republican ally of President Trump, who's retiring. Trump carried the district by 16 points, and Stefanik cruised to victory in 2024. But Democratic State Chairman Jay Jacobs says recent polls show the president's popularity is flagging. The party added Gendebien to a special coordinated campaign program.
This year you've got an open seat, and what I would say is probably the best political environment for the Democrats that I've seen since I've been in politics.
And Republicans are divided. Assemblymember Robert Smullen and Anthony Constantino, who runs the Sticker Mule printing business, are waging a nasty primary for the GOP line. Constantino erected a huge pro-Trump sign on his business and won the president's endorsement, as he said in a recent rally.
I will help President Trump pass his agenda every chance I get, and I will fight to turn New York red to save all of our citizens.
State GOP leaders are behind Smullen. He says his experience will help him.
I've spent the last 8 years serving the people of this district. I'm a servant leader who has their interests at heart.
Smullen already has the Conservative Party line, so he could be on the ballot even if he loses the GOP primary to Constantino. Harvey Shantz is a political scientist at SUNY Plattsburgh. He says that split is a big deal.
So it's a long shot, but that would be the only way the Democrats have an opportunity. If the Republicans cannot coalesce.
If he wins, Gendebien would become the second Democrat to represent the area since the Civil War. In Saratoga, I'm Jimmy Vielkind for the New York Public News Network.
It should be noted that Lake Placid restaurant owner Stuart Amaral is challenging Gendebien in the Democratic primary. It's been nearly a year since an assistant forest ranger's body was found in the Adirondack backcountry. Brendan Jackson's death revealed a key failure in how the DEC keeps track of some of its staff. Emily Russell reported on this incident last year and the legacy that Jackson left behind. She spoke with Northern Light co-host Catherine Wheeler this morning about what's happened since, starting with who Jackson was.
Jackson was in his early 40s. He had spent more than a decade working seasonally as an assistant forest ranger. They're known as AFRs. Jackson knew the Adirondack backcountry so well that he actually co-authored some of the trail maps published by the 80K Mountain Club. So in early summer of last year, he was camping for work at Duck Hole. It's this really remote spot in the high peaks. And AFRs are supposed to radio in and out of work every day with DEC dispatch. Jackson radioed in and out of work on June 7th, which was a Saturday. He was scheduled to work that next week, but never radioed back in. It wasn't until the next Saturday that his friends realized they hadn't heard from him, so they had to alert the DEC. Rangers hiked in and found his body inside of his sleeping bag in his tent. There were no signs of foul play.
So a big part of what went wrong here is that Jackson was out deep in the wilderness for a week and no one was in touch with him. What has the state said about Brendan Jackson's death and its own failures around this incident?
Well, right after it happened, the DEC pledged to investigate his death and make changes to how it keeps track of rangers and AFRs. And we just learned about those changes. DEC Commissioner Amanda Lefton recently spoke with reporters over Zoom.
While no cause of death has been determined at this time, DEC took immediate steps. We evaluated all processes and procedures and took action to enhance backcountry protections for AFRs and all DEC employees working in the field.
Lefton said the DEC had already invested $2 million in a new dispatch system to keep track of its employees. They're still choosing which system to use, so it'll be a while before that's rolled out. Meanwhile, rangers and their managers are now required to have more frequent check-ins, including with assistant forest rangers. And another key change is that AFRs now have to start and end their days at a trailhead. They won't be given any gear to camp on the job. So that's really an effort to prevent an AFR from doing what Jackson did, camping for work deep in the wilderness.
What other changes did the DEC announce?
So this season, every assistant forest ranger will get a satellite communication device. Think of a Garmin InReach, which they can use to send texts and their location if they need help. That's a pilot program this year. It's notable, though, that full-time rangers won't be getting those devices. I spoke with a ranger on background for this story. They're not allowed to talk to reporters without DEC approval. And the ranger was frustrated that those satellite devices will only be going to assistant forest rangers.
Why is there that difference? What is the DEC doing to address gear and other safety concerns for full forest rangers?
Yeah, gear has been a key concern of rangers for years. They've long said that the state does not provide them with all the gear that they need. Many end up using their own money to buy things like extra headlamps and jackets and sleeping bags, gear that's crucial not only to their safety, but to the safety of the folks that they end up rescuing. Commissioner Lefton did say that the DEC has fallen short on providing the necessary gear to rangers.
Part of the challenge is that we also are purchasing the wrong gear. In some instances, it's about quantity, and some of it is just about what kind. And we're trying to refocus what it is that we are purchasing to ensure that it is responsive to what folks actually really need.
Emily, from your reporting, do you get the sense that these efforts and procedural changes will make everyone safer on the job?
Yeah, it seems like the DEC is really doubling down on its assistant forest rangers and ensuring their safety. The ranger I talked to for this story did have some concerns, though. Requiring AFRs to start and end their days from a trailhead means that they're largely staying in the front country. You can only hike so far in 4 hours before you have to turn around and go back to the trailhead to end your day. The DEC also announced a new safety precaution for rangers in the backcountry. Here's Lefton again.
Wherever possible, DEC is also deploying that forest rangers themselves patrol the backcountry in pairs during overnights. This strategy will ensure any emergency impacting the health or safety of a ranger can be quickly responded to by the second ranger, including the ability to call for more resources.
So that's another attempt to prioritize safety in the backcountry. But the ranger I spoke with said requiring them to overnight in pairs will consolidate rangers rather than, encouraging them to spread out and cover a broader part of the backcountry.
Mm-hmm. So, Emily, we're at the start of another hiking season in the Adirondacks. Summer is when many of the search and rescues happen, and it's a stressful and dangerous time for forest rangers, too. What message is the DEC sending to hikers right now?
Commissioner Lefton really was stressing hiker safety when she announced these new protocols. Many of the hikers who get lost or need to be rescued are unprepared. Those rescues put the safety of rangers and AFRs at risk when they have to search through the night or in dangerous conditions. So Lefton reminded hikers of some of the basic precautions that can help prevent the worst case scenarios.
Please wear proper footwear. Wear layers of appropriate clothing. Bring plenty of food, fluids, lights, and navigation tools. Check the weather and know your own limitations.
There were more than 360 search and rescue missions around New York State last year, a vast majority of which were in the Adirondacks. So these kinds of safety protocols are really important to follow here in the mountains, both for hikers and for rangers.
That's our Adirondack reporter Emily Russell speaking this morning with Catherine Wheeler on our other flagship news show, Northern Light. We have more news and stories on our website, ncpr.org. Music today by Danny Thomas of Canton and Ben Cato of Jay. I'm David Summerstein, North Country Public Radio.